This happened on a Saturday. My girlfriend Tess, my puppy Jack, and I were all getting ready for a road trip. We're planning on meeting some friends at their house and then starting the trip from there. On our way to their house at around 11 a.m., a white car with all tinted windows cuts us off and brake checks us close enough that I had to slam the brakes and swerve to avoid an accident. In the immediate fury, I honked and flipped the driver off. I wish I hadn't done this. Immediately, the driver rolls down his window and waves his hand over. He slows down to go back to the other lane so that our cars are parallel to one another. The driver's gesturing wildly and yelling at us while we continue driving down the avenue. I proceed to make gestures to calm down, and then try to ignore him and continue driving. He continues driving right next to us. Eventually, I try speeding up, and he revs in front of me and tries brake checking me again. At this point, I swerve to the other lane, and he again slows down to match my vehicle's speed. He's still gesturing and screaming while I try to ignore him. Suddenly, he reaches into his lap, and I notice he's holding a glass bottle. He throws it, and it shatters at the side of my vehicle. Tess is hysterical at this point, and the puppet hidden under the passenger seat. I go into adrenaline mode and try turning into different streets as the chase ensues. He's following close behind when he throws another glass bottle that shatters against my back window. I tell Tess to call the police as we speed it down a 2-lane street and up a hill. She calls 911 as I come to a stop at the light at the top of the hill. The guy chasing us slows down to a stop behind us. Suddenly, he hops out of his vehicle, and in my rearview mirror, I see him reach back into his car and grab something and puts it into his shorts. He begins walking toward my side of the car as the car in front of me drives away. I noped the fuck out of there, slammed the gas, and turned into the next avenue. Within a minute, he's caught back up to us. I'm now on speaker with 911, explaining the situation and giving them details of his car and appearance. Tess is crying as we speed down a busy avenue, weaving in between cars at 20 above the speed limit. I'm updating the 911 lady where we are, and she tells me to drive to the station. At the next red light, he yells now audibly, "Do we have a problem? Don't fucking flip me off." I'm trying to gesture that we do not have any problem. He's still trying to get me out of the car. The light is still red, and he again hops out of his vehicle. I again floor it through the red light, and he continues chasing as I make my way toward the police station. We're now accelerating and brake checking each other as he tries to drive off the road. I make gestures that he should continue following, hoping to get him to the station. About a block from the police, we get stuck in a busy intersection. There are many cars around us again as he walks up to my car. This time I'm boxed in and Tess is panicking. I'm looking for any escape options, to no avail. The drivers around us notice and many put their windows up and lock their doors. He comes right up to my window, slaps it with his palm, and asks one more time if there's a problem. "Is there a fucking problem?" Again, I adamantly say no. The 911 lady tells me not to engage over the phone speaker. He says, "Good." He gets back into his car and then speeds away. 20 minutes into this horrible car chase experience, we end up meeting with the cops, and then they say there's nothing that they can do, even though I updated them with more details of his direction and where he was last. We calmed down and then continued on our road trip. So yeah, guy in the white unmarked sedan, let's not meet again. So as the title states, I picked up a stranger. I know. I'm the biggest idiot in the world. I've done it a few other times, typically at night, and people usually appreciate it. One time it ended up being my friend from school, another time it was a kid stumbling home drunk, in the days before Uber, so I'd always had pleasant experiences with it. Until tonight. I've always had a soft spot for people walking alone at night. I know I should be wary of them, but I can't help but feel sorry for them. I know it must be creepy to walk by yourself in the dark, and on top of that, my sister's best friend was actually hit by a car and killed one night while she was on a walk. My sister was actually walking next to her when she was hit, and by some miracle the car only hit her friend and not her. I always thought of how lucky I was that my sister survived. So that brings us back to tonight. I was driving home from the movie theater after seeing the movie Hereditary. Would highly recommend, by the way, 9 out of 10 stars. I was driving down this windy, narrow, and dark road near my house, when all of a sudden I see a person, I presume a young woman/teenager, walking down the road. This frightened me because, 1, I'd just seen a scary movie, 2, it was 11 p.m. on Sunday, and 3, she was wearing dark clothes, and I couldn't see her until I was literally passing by her. I turned around at the nearest street and drove back towards her. I considered all the possibilities. Maybe she had an argument with her boyfriend, maybe she was having issues with her family, etc. I would have just chalked it off as a person taking a nightly walk had it not been on this particular street. I live in a very small, safe town, and most streets have sidewalks. This street has very few houses, and it's not a street someone would typically walk down. I figured that if she was walking down this street, it wasn't a planned nightly stroll. I pull over, and it's a young woman who's probably in her late 20s to early 30s. For reference, I'm a 5'5", 22-year-old woman, and I drive a dinky little Toyota Camry, which has car seats in the back since I'm a nanny, so I figure I'm about as trustworthy looking as they come. She doesn't really react when I pull up. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Olivia. Do you need some help? Can I give you a ride somewhere? And she doesn't respond. She was kind of talking to herself, and didn't really answer me at first. I thought she may have been shaken up or something, so it didn't really register with me at first that she wasn't entirely coherent. I start to leave since she hasn't really answered me, and she comes with me to my car. I say, "Oh great, where to?" To which she ignores me again. At this point, I don't know what to do, so I just start driving in the direction she was walking. I start to ask her if I should be turning down any of the side streets, which she ignores and continues talking to herself. We eventually get to the end of the road, so I make a turn onto another main road and park in the parking lot of a local pond. At this point, I'm thinking she's taken some sort of drug. Every once in a while, I could make out a few words, and she kept talking about how bad people were coming to get her. I ask her if she's taken anything and needs to go to the hospital. She was very offended when I asked that, and just scoffs. I then ask her, "Do you maybe need some food and water? I know there's a 24-hour diner around here," to which she replies, "Ha! Food and water? You're funny. You're with them, aren't you? You've set me up. They're coming here, aren't they?" While all of this is going on, she's frantically looking up and down the street at every car that passes. I realize I'm making her nervous, and I tell her I can drop her off anywhere, or call someone for her, or do anything to make her feel safe. Every once in a while, she would start crying a bit and kept talking about all the bad people that were coming for her. I also suggested that we could go to the police so she would have somewhere safe to go. She scoffs at this idea as well. After sitting with her for 30 plus minutes waiting for her to give me some sort of direction, I get a call from my mom. She asks me, "Hey, where are you? I thought the movie was over a while ago." I reply, "Hi, I'm on my way home. I'm stuck in some crazy traffic." She goes, okay, I'll see you in a bit. Now I can be a good liar when I want to be. I knew this one wasn't convincing though. I knew my mom could tell that something was up. When my phone rang, the woman's eyes darted towards me. After I hung up the phone, she started convincing herself that I was setting her up. I know this sounds selfish, but at this point, I didn't even care about the woman that much anymore. I started to get scared for my own safety. She had this big handbag that she held to her chest the whole time. I started to worry that maybe she had a gun or some kind of other weapon with her. By this point, we'd been sitting in the pond parking lot for over 45 minutes. At the worst time possible, my cousin started texting me about coming out to her parents. The woman would get very anxious when I'd start texting, so I kept updating her and showing her my phone to show her that I'm not texting any of the bad people that she's afraid of. In fact, I'm texting my cousin and saying congrats for coming out. When she couldn't see what I was doing on my phone, she'd get very nervous and start talking to herself again and wind herself up. I figured for my own safety, I need to keep her as least suspicious of me as possible. I realized I needed help. I couldn't call anyone because when my mom called, the woman darted her eyes towards me, held her stare for the entire phone call. I was worried that she would actually try to kill me if I called anyone. So I start pretending to text my cousin again about coming out. In reality, I start texting my mom saying, "Don't call me back. Call the cops and tell them to come to Elk Pond. I'm safe, but please don't call me back and don't come here." Meanwhile, I'm pretending to be texting my cousin and telling the woman out loud, "Oh, her parents took her coming out really well. She also went to the LA Gay Pride last year and was so bummed to miss it this year. Every time a car drove by, she would start slowly freaking out and accuse me of setting her up again." Finally, a few minutes after I text my mom, 2 cop cars pull into the pond parking lot. The woman gave me the most evil stare I've ever witnessed, and the cops pull up and ask me to get out of my car. I'm relieved by this and gladly tell the cop exactly what happened. The other cop goes up to my passenger window, sees the woman, and says to the other cop, "Oh, it's just Amanda." The cop fills me in on this woman. Basically, she wanders the street of my town constantly, usually in residential neighborhoods or around the schools, and gets the cops called on her very frequently. I told the cops that I didn't know if I should take her to the hospital in case she was mentally ill or if she was high on something, and they basically told me that both of my suspicions were right. While this was not a fun lesson to learn, it certainly was a valuable one. When I got home, my mom rushed out of the house and embraced me. I'd given this poor woman the scare of her life, all because I was too naive and trusted a stranger. So kids, adults, and anyone in between, learn from me. Do not pick up a random stranger. Call your local police station if you see someone walking at night. They will most likely be able to help them much more than you can, and you won't put yourself at risk. So, Amanda, let's never meet again. This happened around 15 years ago, and to this day, whenever I think about what happened, A cold shiver runs down my spine. Myself, my cousins, and my brother are damn lucky. My parents own a timeshare in Laguna Beach, and it's a good 5 to 6 hour drive from where I and my family live outside of Las Vegas. My cousin and her boyfriend at the time were visiting from Philly, and they, along with my aunt and grandma, were accompanying my family, my mom, dad, and brother, to California. Now, my parents, auntie, and grandma are in one car, and they'd gotten a bit of a head start as my dad's anal about leaving right on time. However, us kids, I was 25 and the oldest, so not really a kid, but you get the point. We're about an hour behind, due to my brother being a slowpoke. Anyway, my cousin's boyfriend is driving, and my brother's in the passenger seat. My cousin and I are behind them chit-chatting. It's about 4 p.m., and we're somewhere outside Nipton, California. Now, for those of you whom have gone through Nipton before, know the place is creepy as fuck. There's a general store with an outhouse bathroom, and I believe a restaurant. Anyways, we are maybe 10 minutes from Nipton when we see a car pulled off into the desert. We drive by, and my brother goes, "There's a guy laying in the desert." We go back and forth about calling 911 when we realize none of us have any bars. This is before smartphones blew up. I was able to get service if I held my phone slightly. We figured we'd turn back just to suss out the situation. We turn back and my brother and my cousin's boyfriend get out and start hollering at the guy, asking if he's okay. No answer, and just as they decide to step closer to see if this guy is dead, my cousin and I spot two people hiding behind the car's trunk. We scream for my brother and her boyfriend, and I think they had heard rustling, so they sprint back and pile in the car. Meanwhile, the guy who is supposedly injured sits up, and two scary-looking dudes pop up. My cousin's boyfriend takes off, and we're all freaking out. Meanwhile, I have bars, and I call 911 to report what had happened. We pull into Nipton while I talk to a dispatcher who takes my info and says she'll send someone out there. We decide fuck stopping, we just want to keep going. I'd like to say that's the end of my story and we made our way to the beach, but no, it's not. Because we continue on to Baker and decide we are safe enough to pull into the Mad Greek for a bathroom break and some strawberry shakes and gyros, we're waiting for our order when my cousin's boyfriend comes over to the table looking like he saw a ghost. He points outside across from the Mad Greek at the little trading post there where we had parked our car. Guess who pulls in 3 cars down? Yeah, if you guessed the 3 rough-looking dudes, you'd be right. They get out and look around and walk into the post. Meanwhile, we're getting our food to go and devising a way to get the fuck out of town without dying. However, fate was on our side that day because those 3 came out of the store carrying beer, and thank God for the RV that was sandwiched in between our SUV and their car. They got in their car and pulled out and sped off like madmen. We took that as our cue and a sign from the man upstairs to get the F out of there, and we ran out to our car and got in. We didn't stop again until we reached Laguna. I never heard back from anyone regarding my call to the police. We never told my parents or my aunt or grandma. To this day, we all regard it as the scariest thing that ever happened to any of us. And I refuse to take the Nipton cutoff route, even if it's a shortcut. So guys who were up to no good, let's not meet. Hey everyone, if you liked the video, feel free to subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.